Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Shamu's Equal Access Talk Show on Zondex TV. Tonight, we are privileged to be in the company of Dr. Nkosana Moyo, an economist, politician, and former Minister of Trade and Industry in the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Dr. Nkosana Moyo, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. Let's touch base. Take us a little bit backwards on when you were appointed Minister of Trade and Industry. What went through your mind?
Well, at the time, I thought it was an opportunity for me to serve my country. So that's what went through my mind, that if you recall, that cabinet had about 8 ministers who were appointed, not elected. You know, that
Yes.
those 12 seats?
Yes.
And they appeared to be a concerted effort to get people who were so-called technocrats to get into the cabinet. So it felt like an opportunity for a new way of doing things and looking at how to run the economy.
That's right.
From a purely technical perspective.
Okay. And your journey, just a short stint, how was it being the Minister of Trade and Industry?
It was frustrating. It was frustrating because in spite of what appeared to be like the intention of changing course from a very politicized way of running the country to a technically oriented way, when you got into cabinet, it continued to be very political, very emotional and political and backward looking in many ways. In other words, looking at what had gone wrong, the relationship between blacks and whites, as opposed to saying, let's draw a line in the sand and create a new Zimbabwe where all these relationships are recalibrated.
You mentioned of frustrations. Did you try to address those frustrations?
Absolutely, many, many times. I had many one-on-ones with the president himself, where things would be agreed but never implemented.
All right. You then decided to leave the cabinet, your post, and then you faxed through your resignation. Was it necessary to fax?
Well, firstly, your facts are not correct.
Okay.
So once I decided to leave, I actually went and did a meeting with the president.
All right.
And they told him I was leaving. I decided to leave. And they tried to persuade me to stay. And he insisted, in fact, he refused to accept my resignation. And they insisted that I go and rethink, reconsider. I told him that out of respect, I would do that, go and reconsider, but that the likelihood of me changing my mind was virtually next to nothing. So I left and just confirmed my resignation from South Africa.
Okay. What sort of things were you involved after you left cabinet?
I went to Washington and joined the World Bank Group and worked at IFC, which is the private sector window of the World Bank. So I did that, looking after the African continent, working on SMEs and the like. Then after a couple of years, I went to London to join the CDC group, which was soon after that restructured to form a private equity, what we call a general partner. In other words, the people who manage the money on behalf of the British government.
Right.
And I stayed with them for 5.5 years.
Okay.
Before Donald Kaberuka, who had been elected to become the president of the ADB, the African Development Bank, asked me to come and help him establish the office of the Chief Operating Officer. Okay. And I did that until I retired in 2011.
2011. Yeah. We happened to bump into each other. We're nominated in the same category in the Zuma Chivas Award in 2015. Yeah. Are you still running the project?
No. I wasn't running the project. I was just a nominee like you.
All right.
Yeah, but after 2011, I came down to South Africa and established MINDS, which stands for the Mandela Institute for Development Studies. Yeah. That's what I'm actually just leaving now to go and run my campaign. So I've been running that since 2011.
All right. Fast forward, 29 June 2017 marked a turnaround of events in your life. You announced you're running for president.
Yes, I did.
How did that come upon?
If you go back to social media, as I'm sure you're probably well aware of, a lot of Zimbabweans are looking for a different way forward.
That's right.
They've been asking for, I think, technically competent Zimbabweans who understand how a real economy works, to come and try and help rescue the country. They've asked for people like Strive Masiwa and myself, amongst others, to consider. Okay. So I considered and decided that I would take on the challenge. Okay.
Is it true that you said it took you 3 months before you decided upon to actually...
Yes, it is true.
3 months? Or was it been going on for a long time, or just 3 months to make a decision?
Well, I think if you look at the crescendo of people saying, Nkosana, why don't you throw your... It's that those 3 months in particular were like...
But otherwise, you had that ambition long time ago.
No, not at all. Not at all. I started Minds, which I think is very important, and that's what I intended to run for the balance of my life, if you like.
Okay.
Because it addresses the issues in Zimbabwe, but at a continental level. So for me, that was a good thing to end my working life on. It was a good challenge, and I still think it is.
Sure. Right. Most people are concerned since you announced your entry into politics. One, they are concerned about the splitting of the votes. Do you understand the nature of splitting the votes when people actually say that why don't you join the opposition party rather, or why don't you go into coalition with the other parties?
But I think I should be asking the question in reverse. Which vote are we splitting? Do you know the stats of the voting patterns in Zimbabwe for the past 3 general elections? Less people don't choose not to vote than those who go to vote. About 40% only of eligible voters turn up to vote. And almost 60% of eligible voters don't bother to turn up to vote. So when people say you're splitting the vote, they're addressing the 40% and not concerning themselves about the 60%. And my view is that those 60% are people have used this analogy before. It's like you going to a restaurant and deciding that what is on the menu is just not attractive enough. And you asking a new player to go and be part of the same menu, which means automatically the 60% will continue to say, you know what, I'm not getting into that restaurant. That's what we should be concerning ourselves with, the 60%. That's the majority.
Yeah, I guess the concern comes from the previous experiences of the voter patterns in Zimbabwe, where Mutambara came in, or Simbama Koni came in, and he walked away with 8% of the votes, which would have gone to the opposition party.
No, but even if it had, the opposition party would still have had a minority, but you're missing the point. Why are we not talking about the 60% who are not bothering to vote? We should be asking ourselves the question, why are they not bothering to vote?
What's your strategy in convincing them to vote?
Well, we're going to engage with them. We seriously engage. And when we articulate what we're about and what we think the future ought to be about, it's completely different from anything people have heard. So there is a basis for believing that our offer will attract more people to say, maybe this is worthwhile. I want to go into that restaurant because what is now on offer is attractive to me.
You mentioned in one of your interviews with Renyatwa that you could have preferred to launch your campaign at the Cyril Geneso in Ifrod. But you did not because the police then were on your way. So what are you going to do to make sure that you reached those people that you intended to reach in the first place?
What I'm not going to do is to share my campaigning strategy with you so that I can go to the opposition. You're
addressing with the voters.
No. I talk to the voters. I don't do it through the press. I go and talk to the voters.
So your strategy is secret.
So to the opposition, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. As it should be.
But people want to know that you're going to reach them.
I am going to talk to the people directly.
Another question. How are you going to engage the rural population?
Same issue, same answer. I'm not telling you, I'm telling them.
From Uzumambaramba to Gwanda.
Absolutely. And we are doing that already.
Do you have a team
that you're working with? But of course. And we're building the team. It's getting bigger every day.
That's interesting to hear. Let's talk about the economy. As an economist, I'm sure you've followed and you've identified what's lacking or what we need to improve on in the Zimbabwean economy at the moment. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, everybody who is Zimbabwean knows the economy is collapsed. There are no jobs anymore. And when you look at it as to what the reasons are, firstly, investors have got no confidence in the government because the government changes its mind every day, literally. So if I'm an investor and I want to bring my capital into Zimbabwe, 2 years, maybe even less than 2 years down the line, the rules change and I lose my money. Why would I bring my money into Zimbabwe? So you have to understand how investors think. You have to create an environment that attracts them and gives them confidence to come and invest in your country and create jobs. So that's point number one. Point number two, which I think is very important, is that one needs to understand that a government cannot be both a player and a referee. And our government tries to be both. So which again means if I'm an investor and government makes itself an investor as well and they are the referee, it means I've got no chance. They're going to change the rules as they see fit. I want the government to get clarity on what its role is and create the room of being a referee where there is an even playing ground created because they are not trying to favor themselves. So they stay out of investing. Only in the infrastructure space, I think there is room for partnerships between government and the private sector. Examples: government has got no business or being in the tourism industry. As you may or may not know, they've got their own hotels. Government owns a company in mining. There is no business for government to be in there. How can it make rules for players who are not government and itself as a government playing in the same space? Just that clarity is important. I think it's also important, governments worldwide will never have enough resources to be the primary investor in the economy. They should create rules which allow the private sector to mobilize resources, which they actually do have, and come and invest in our economy. And that just clarity of roles will make resources come into our country and open up more jobs, create more jobs.
Do you believe the government is trying to do a better job? Because recently they said they improved in the ease of doing business in Zimbabwe, where they've incentivized investors who want to come and invest in Zimbabwe. Are you aware of the Invest in Zimbabwe handbook that government released?
But in that case, we shouldn't be having this conversation because the evidence should be there. That is happening, shouldn't we? If the evidence is not there, then it must tell you that that causal relationship is not working. If what they're claiming to be doing and what you suggest they're doing is working, then the economy should be booming. And we should not have a problem of companies closing down almost every day.
Sure. How do you intend to deal with corruption?
Just not tolerate
step at the border.
Just not tolerate
all the way to Harare, it's corruption.
Just not tolerate it, starting from the top. And I've given this example, and people think maybe I'm joking, but I'm not. When I win, the first people I'll sit down are my family. And I'll tell my family members that if they think they can get corrupt and get away with it because they are my family, they are wrong. Because they'll go to jail.
Right.
So once that is understood, it means nobody is above the law. You get corrupt, you go to jail.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. In one of the interviews, I think we covered this. What are you offering the people of Zimbabwe?
So, what is wrong? In fact, let me start somewhere slightly different, because I want to talk directly to the voter in this instance.
Sure.
What is the job that needs to be done in our country? I think the job that needs to be done is in three components.
Right.
And I would like the voters to understand that everybody who is running is like an applicant for that job. And therefore, the voter needs to go through a particular process of assessing those who are standing to understand whether they qualify for the job or not. I think there are three things, primary things. Zimbabwe is not a nation. We are very fragmented. We behave according to tribe, according to gender, color, and so on. There is no nation that is going to succeed until you manage to unify the nation and make everybody feel that they are a citizen, they are respected, and their rights and obligations are determined only on the basis of being a citizen, not on anything else. Not on what party I belong to, not what gender I am, what age I am, what church I go to, what political party I go to. If you become a head of state, you are a head of state for everybody. No exceptions. You are not head of state for a party, but for all the citizens. So, cohesion is point number one. Point number two is, you mentioned the issue of the judiciary earlier on. The judiciary, the army, the police, and the central intelligence services, at the moment, they are not institutions of state. They are institutions which are appendages of a political party, which means they treat people who belong to the ruling party as first-class citizens, and everybody else is a second-class citizen. You can't run a country like that. You need to make citizens feel that there is absolute equity on the basis of just citizenship. That way you create unity and everybody will pull in the same direction to build the country, not just the economy, the country in all aspects. The last one is the economy, which we've just discussed. Those are the three challenges, as I see it, which a Zimbabwean head of state needs to address. So the electorate, in my opinion, just like in a job application, you need to be clear what the job is for which you are advertising for applicants to offer themselves. Once you've done that, those who submit their CVs must be screened on the basis of what job needs to be done. And that's what I would advise Zimbabwean voters to understand. So all of those people offering themselves should be screened according to a clarity of what job needs to be done. And then you decide on whether these people are qualified or not. And vote accordingly.
What's your take on the cash shortages currently at the moment?
Same thing, lack of understanding of how an economy works. Yeah, we're going issuing bond notes, but that's not the solution. If you go back to the point where Zimbabwe dollarized, you and I know that there is not a cent in your bank account or mine that came from anywhere other than our own sweat and hard work. So how can it be that all of a sudden I put $10 in the bank and now I'm told I can't get it? There can only be two explanations. Either the bank failed technically and lent my money irresponsibly and lost it, in which case the bank ought to own up and give me my money anyway. Or the bank allowed some third party who didn't put money in the bank to get money. Those are the only two possibilities. And so you tell me which one you think it is.
I will leave that to the voters as well. Anyway, do you think we can have our own currency? Or how can we adopt the rand, for example, at the moment?
But that's not this. The problem is, do we have a government that understands how an economy works? Yeah, if you're starting at the wrong end, and that's what this thing about bond notes, why it will never work. The bond notes are a symptom. The lack of currency or liquidity in the market is a symptom of a behavior of government. Government is behaving as if money falls out of trees, literally. They don't create anything, but they keep demanding money. Where is the money coming from? You have to grow an economy in order to get taxes which rise to meet the needs of government. That's what you have to do. The economy has to grow. The economy is shrinking.
Right. Dr. Nkosana Moyo, one of the sticking points at the moment, the Zimbabwean population has got issues with trust and confidence in whoever wants to come into power or who is currently there into power. They lack confidence in the state institutions. They don't trust anyone who comes upon. How are you going to build that trust back so that people can actually vote for you?
Like I told you, see, life is relative. So if you get President Mugabe, you get Mr. Morgan Tsvangirai and myself and whoever else offers themselves. The truth of the matter is, what we have to go on is what all of those candidates who are offering themselves have done to date. There are no guarantees in life ever, but there is sufficient evidence for you to make differentiated decisions on the people that put their CV forward. So you've got the evidence you need at least to make decisions on a relative basis of the people who offer themselves. Who is it who has done things and has got a track record and a CV that suggests that they may behave in a manner that gets beyond this issue? I think voters can make that decision because the evidence is there.
Right. Do you have family?
Yes, I do.
Are they supporting you on your ambition?
Yes, they are.
Very well.
Well, I mean, they're concerned like anybody else would be concerned, but they are supporting me.
What are they concerned about? Your safety?
Well, all of the things you're talking about which are a problem in Zimbabwe. Security is one. And the other is just, how do Zimbabweans think? Are they going to support you? No family would not worry about things like that. Are you taking on this journey and is it going to succeed and so on and so on? So my family is concerned.
What did you think if the opposition, this so-called grand coalition, calls you upon to be the president of the coalition? Would you take it?
Well, I'm not going to speculate. I'll listen. if that eventuality were to happen, I'll listen to them, what they've got to offer. My issue always is, it depends on the substance. I don't want to theorize about things which, either theory or if the offer, in fact, is on a basis which does not address what I've just told you. What I perceive as the challenge that the country is facing, then clearly there won't be a conversation. But if we get into a point where we've got a common understanding of what our country needs, then I must be open to a conversation.
Dr. Nkosana Moyo, thank you very much for coming to the program.
My pleasure.
There we go, viewers. You were listening to Dr. Nkosana Moyo, one of the presidential candidates running for 2018 elections. Thank you for watching Shamu's Equal Access Talk Show on Zondex TV. Have a good evening.